When faith is needed. The elders used to say that as one lives their life, there are a few moments when good opportunities come their way. That is why in many proverbs and sayings, we see phrases that reflect the idea that life is a continuous cycle of fortune and misfortune. Therefore, from birth to death, both bad and good things inevitably come into our lives. However, believers must remember that such fortunes and misfortunes do not come by chance, but are provided by God. When we encounter good things, we must recognize them as part of God's providence and offer thanks. Likewise, when faced with hardship, we should take the opportunity to reflect on why such difficulties have been allowed to come to us. In Genesis, God commanded Abraham to go to the land of Canaan, intending to make him the father of faith. For Abraham, it must have taken great determination and resolve to leave for a foreign land where he had no family or kin. God directed Abraham in this way so that he would begin his journey of faith in a place where he had nothing else to rely on. Faith is often not born in times of peace and ease, but in the midst of trials and tribulations, when there is nothing else to depend on. When a person has only one thing to rely on, they tend to place their full trust in that one thing. In Abraham's case, he needed to leave his father's house and go to a place where he had no relatives, so that he could realize that the only one he could rely on was God. In such an environment, God led Abraham to depend on him so that faith could grow, and he could seize the opportunity to exercise that faith. Therefore, those who encounter trials and difficulties, and thereby gain opportunities to use their faith, are more blessed than those who simply receive an abundance of blessings immediately after believing in Jesus. We often wish for everything to go smoothly, but God desires to give us challenging circumstances so that we can have opportunities to exercise our faith. When is faith truly needed by believers? Is it when everything is going well? Or is it when trials and tribulations pile up and our hearts are broken? Therefore, when we as believers encounter hardship and difficulty in our lives, it becomes an opportunity to exercise our faith. Though in our eyes, the situation may seem hard and impossible, like a battle we cannot win with our own strength and ability, when we begin the fight of faith, that is precisely the moment when God works and the time when He is with us. Through such opportunities, God confirms our faith to ourselves and strengthens our faith in Him. Despite this, we often fail to recognize these truths and miss the chance to exercise our faith, instead filling our hearts with complaints and resentment. That is why Christians must have a God-centered perspective rather than a self-centered one. When we judge and think about the events that come into our lives with a God-centered mindset, we can finally realize that He is providing us with opportunities to use our faith. The stories of Abraham and his descendants in the Bible are all about such opportunities for faith. If Joseph had only lamented his situation and harbored resentment after being sold into slavery, how could he have used his faith to become the prime minister of Egypt? Joseph, too, recognized what God wanted in the midst of his circumstances and used the opportunity of faith given to him. As a result, his suffering turned into a blessing, and his crisis became an opportunity. The various hardships and troubles that come your way today are also opportunities to exercise your faith. Therefore, I hope that instead of filling your heart with fear or resentment, you will use the opportunities of faith that God has allowed, so that your suffering may become a blessing, and your crisis may become an opportunity.
구독, 좋아요, 알림 설정 해주세요. Subscribe, like, set notifications.